Hello. Welcome to Season 10 of The Horrific Podcast. We're two friends who live in different places but share a love for scary movies. In each episode, we both watch the same movie on our own and then record a conversation together about what we liked, what we hated, if we were scared, and maybe even some larger truths about why people watch horror movies in the first place. This season, our theme is Because We Have the Microphone. And because we have the microphone, you will listen as we discuss a bunch of movies that we just kind of feel like watching with no rhyme or reason. Think of it as a collection of movies that we've referenced a lot in previous seasons or been curious about for a long time. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the episode. So a while back, we did the newer version of The Hills Have Eyes, and I knew that there was an original, but I didn't realize there were like 100 of them. Like, there are a bunch of Hills Have Eyes movies.
Yeah, I laugh because I realized the same thing when I was searching for The Hills Have Eyes. I thought it was kind of funny. There's a ton. Yeah.
And this was also Wes Craven's second movie that he directed. And so it's kind of cool because he's one of those names that just keeps coming up on any of these, like, you know, horror through the decades or, you know, recent horror movies or anything where we're doing things across the time span from like the 70s till now. His name just keeps coming up as being very influential, whether that's as a director or a writer or producer or whatever. And so it's kind of cool to see the early time when he was still like figuring out his style and what he liked to do.
Yeah, that's some of the things I was reading about with this was kind of learning how this kind of came into play, and I just thought it was kind of interesting. I guess you just, you know, being a little bit younger, you hear Wes Craven and you just automatically know kind of like a legend horror thing, but like this was still like he coming up era for him, like where maybe he had to prove himself a little bit, but it's just I just hope that one day I can be like considered like a legend of something. And that's what he's accomplished in his life.
Well, you're a legendary
I don't want to do
friend.
with horror movies, though. Oh, man, thanks.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. We got a lot to discuss today. So I'm going to do my intro, and then you can do your fun facts, and then we will get into the stranded in the desert details. In 1977, Vanguard brought us The Hills Have Eyes, a horror film written and directed by Wes Craven. This movie tells the story of a family on a road trip who take a wrong turn while road tripping across the western part of the United States. Even after a warning from a creepy old man at a sketchy gas station, they take a detour through the desert near an airbase where their car breaks down and they have to fight for survival against a brutal family of desert scavengers. The Hills Have Eyes spawned a franchise and has become a cult classic. It was made on a budget of less than $1 million and has made around $25 million at the box office. It can currently be rented for streaming on Amazon Prime Video. Perfect. So what did you learn about this movie?
So Wes Craven loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, and this is kind of like a homage to that, which I respect the hell out of because I feel like sometimes with horror movies that we get nowadays, it's done not because they're horror fans, but because like maybe they see it as being easier to do or something. And talking about Underskin, you know what I mean? And I like the fact that he's like he enjoys other horror movies that are out there, or enjoyed other horror movies that are out there, and it's like this is kind of a homage to it. I don't feel like he stole any ideas from Texas Chainsaw Massacre for this one, but I just liked it. The dead dog in this film was an actual dead dog. Did you know that?
No. I mean, it definitely looked like it. I was curious if that was like practical effects.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So they didn't kill it for the film, but I guess being that they're out in the middle of nowhere, they were able to easily find a dead animal and used it. Wes Craven went on to say, let's just say we bought a dead dog from the country and leave it at that. Now, I read that as, let's be ominous about it. You know, like, let's not... let's just not... I don't know, let's just act like that's the case, and it's probably not. Just to add, like, make the movie eerie. But, who knows? So, Michael Berryman, legend in the horror genre. He played Pluto. He was also in, he's been in a ton, but, you know, he was also in Devil's Rejects. He was in Devil's Rejects. He apparently constantly faced heat stroke. He had 26 birth defects, and one of those was that he lacked sweat glands, which meant that the intense desert heat was particularly hazardous to his health. But he made it through. He soldiered on. I think they said, like, I want to say it was like 100 days or so out in the desert doing this, filming and stuff, which, like, yeah, give it to the guy. Man. Intense.
Dedication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dedication to the game. So, obviously, budget was small per most horror movies, I feel like, pre-90s. And, pre-80s maybe. But it's pretty small, so that meant that a lot of the actors actually had to perform stunts themselves, and sometimes it put them in harm's way. For instance, the scene where Brenda and Bobby are set, or where they set a trap and to kill Papa Jupiter by blowing up a trailer. The crew members who set the explosion actually couldn't tell Craven whether it was safe to have the actors foreground of the shot or not. Quote by Craven was, "We didn't know how much the blow up was going to be," and I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
But they chose to take the chance.
They did it. Yeah, for this film. And it's also funny to think, I feel like, to think about that, like, they didn't know at the time that Hills Have Eyes was going to be a 100 movie series. Sure. Or, you know, like, they were just doing it. And, I respect that. They also probably weren't told the truth. You know, like, what are you going to do as a director? Go and tell your actors, like, you could die here, or we could get a really good shot. Or, you know, you could die here, but we're going to get a really good shot.
Calculated risk.
Yeah. Or was it one of those things where it's just like, hey, you want to make money or not? Also, this movie was also inspired by Wes Craven went on a motorcycle ride with his gal at the time and landed in a small town. I think it was in the desert, but landed in a small town and started getting heckled by some locals, and they ended up shooting an arrow right by his head. Landed, and he came back and actually told them that he could sue them, and the response was, "We could bury you in the salt mine and no one would know." Which, like, I respect the hell out of that response. Yeah. That's like a 70s version of, like, fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I thought that was great. Obviously this movie's inspired a lot. One of them was, you know, Sam Raimi from Evil Dead and all his other films. So a whole bunch of directors, everyone kind of inspired by this. One of the ways that was kind of paid homage in this film, though, to other horror films. So what Wes Craven, like we talked about, was a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Another one was, you can see a ripped poster for Steven Spielberg's Jaws in the background when Brenda was, the scene with Brenda getting possibly raped by Pluto and Mars. But it was a Jaws poster from Spielberg. And Raimi actually went on to say about this that he took it to mean that Wes Craven was saying Jaws was just pop horror, where he has real horror. Wes Craven's come around saying that was not the case. It was kind of a joke, that he's just a fan of it. Raimi, though, went on to kind of do the same things in his films. We talked about that during our podcast. We no big deal. One of them was Nightmare on Elm Street and The Evil Dead. But anyway, those are the facts that I have about this film. It was really interesting to read about this stuff. I think just the kind of legend of it and history, and there's a ton of stuff out there, so I recommend you guys all go out and do it. Check it out.
So pretty much everything about this movie is something I would like. And if I just look at it on paper, I'd be like, yeah, this is going to be high on my list. I'm going to put this up, same vein as Texas Chainsaw. All the stars have aligned on this being something I'd be really into. But for the majority of this movie, I just felt kind of disengaged. And I don't really know why. And I'm curious if you had a similar take or if you felt differently about it.
So I feel like I did in parts. The thing with me, though, is I like bad action films.
Mm-hmm.
My 70s, 80s, 90s, just whatever.
Sure, yeah.
You got Steven Seagal, I'm in. But, so like in parts of it, I was just like, okay, I get it. Okay, yeah. we got it. Other parts, though, I definitely enjoyed it, but I will say it was not great.
It didn't hit me like Texas Chainsaw did.
Yeah, it didn't. Texas Chainsaw, it was the same feeling for both, right? But like, I feel like content-wise, obviously, we talked about how he was influenced by Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it just in the act, it was all the same concept, but it's just this one for some reason I couldn't get drawn in. And I don't know if it's because I hadn't seen the original. Until later on. I don't know. It just the same.
I felt the same way, but I really have like a hard time like picking things to criticize. Like, I loved the opening credits, that 70s horror font with the creepy ambient background music. Like, that was all kind of perfect. It got me hyped and in the mood for the movie. It had this super grainy film, which I think makes for a great like slasher type horror movie. Mm-hmm. And I also read that they rented the cameras from like a porno company, and that's why it looked the way it did.
Yep. Yeah.
Which was kind of funny. But it starts with like the creepy gas station in the middle of nowhere, which is like the classic horror trope of like, when you see that, don't stop. Definitely don't ask for directions. But it was just, and like the whole idea of, the RV breaks down in the remote location. It's not like this is trying to go a bunch of different places. It has a limited number of characters. They're stuck in a creepy, scary situation, and then horror ensues. Like, that's what I want from a horror movie. It didn't go too far into trying to explain like the background or the story or a bunch of stuff that wasn't necessary for what it was trying to do. It had some really good gore. It had some really good, like, convincing special effects. But again, I had a hard time staying engaged with it, and it just felt like the pace really fell flat a number of times, and did not keep me like on the edge of my seat or interested, in seeing what came next. I guess maybe it didn't pull off the suspense that it needed to be as effective as it could have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And here's the thing, like, I'm generally, I don't want to say, like, just because it's a remake of a film, I'm not a fan. If the same people are involved, then, I have more faith in it. But I will say, like, I understand why they made the changes in the remake that they did. That's what kind of helped keep it more interesting. Because, with this one, it was almost like it just bad luck got them in that situation. Mm-hmm. And whereas, in the remake, it was, set up, kind of
the gas station guy was in on it.
Yeah. And so,
also the only reason they crashed is because some jets flew by.
Yeah, and then
then pretended they weren't there for the rest of the time. Like,
it never happened again.
Yeah.
On the same road that they were just on.
Yeah.
And in the remake, it definitely defined a little bit why it happened and stuff. I'm saying that all to say, like, I can see why that was the case, and I watched the remake before seeing this one, and maybe that's one of the reasons why I was just like, because there's more balls to the remake than it felt like with this one. This one felt like almost like a hollow film in a way, But like you're saying, the gore and stuff they did, I mean, I felt like it was top notch. Like when Pluto's Achilles tendon was cut, like that was that looked legit. Like that was it looked very legit, and like him kind of pulling a little piece down and stuff. It was just like, oh, that was intense. But I definitely know what you mean. It wasn't engaging. I had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I didn't connect with the characters.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't necessarily like some of them. And it was because of, I felt like some, you know, that 70s acting does get a little intense sometimes. And, or I say intense, it gets a little rough sometimes. And it just kind of lost me.
Yeah. And also in reading about this, so when I'm not like engaged in a movie, I'm usually spending a lot of the time that it's on like reading about it. And so it was interesting because it seemed like lots of descriptions referred to the family in the desert as cannibals, but you never saw them eat a person.
Right.
They were just eating like the dog and the bird. And they talked like they routinely would eat dogs or like other animals that they would find, but I didn't see any evidence that they were. And so I was like, well, where did that even come from? And then reading more about it, I realized the version of this that got released was very, very edited from the original. So I think that may have contributed a little bit to some of the, like it kind of felt jerky or really flat in a lot of places. But that would make sense if you realized that they had to cut out all the most intense scenes, or like if some of the horror delivered a little bit more, then maybe like the feel of the movie would have been different. And I didn't really get far enough in to know like specifically where that happened, because they definitely did still have some pretty intense scenes, but maybe the overall feel of it would have been different if it had all those scenes that had to be edited out.
So being that we read a lot about like horror films coming out and all that, or films that have been out and we're trying to read facts about them, I feel like there's a common thing with a lot of the ones we watch. So really old ones, these people passed out at the theater because it was so intense. Yeah. And then also, this was going to be X-rated, and then they had to edit out a bunch of stuff to make it R. This was one I legit believed, based off of the editing, like what you're talking about with the shakiness and stuff, that was like legit. They legit had to cut out a bunch to make it pass as R-rated instead of X-rated. I could see that for sure, just based off of the editing, and sometimes the story got a little twisted in a way. Mm-hmm. And so I could definitely see that for sure, because this was one that, you know, one of the first facts you read about this is it was rated X until they cut out footage and you can't find the director's cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I think we've kind of established both of our feelings on this, and they're pretty similar, but I think we both feel like there were some pretty good scenes. So were there any that really stood out to you, trying to focus on like where it did deliver?
Yeah, I think the chasing after the dog, I think the dog getting out of the camper, so they break down, Dad goes to the gas station,
because they always say when you're in a sketchy situation, the first thing you should do is split up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's in the books. But the frustration was like the dog's barking and she just opens the door and they just watch him take off. Two parts of the frustration. First off, just doing that is just stupid on your own part. And if you have a dog that you can't holler to come back and they actually come back, then put them on a leash. The second part was actually chasing after them, because at that point they didn't know things were crazy. And you let a dog out where they have room to run, especially after being cooped up. Yeah. They didn't stretch them legs out. Right. But going and chasing the dog down and just not knowing exactly what's coming yet was definitely, one of my more favorite scenes. I feel like the dad at the gas station, other than dealing with the guy who was trying to hang himself, but just like that whole situation was,
like where the guy comes in through the window and drags him out.
grabs the gas station owner out, like, and pulls him through, and then the dad opens the outhouse and the guy has the crowbar shoved through his chest, and he's like hanging on the door. I thought those were probably some of my more favorite scenes for sure.
Yeah. The one that really stood out to me was, and this is one where I was just like completely on the edge of my seat, like really pulled me in, which, like I said, was not the case for most of the movie, is where after they've kind of invaded the RV and one of the guys is holding the blonde girl and he's already shot two of the other people, and then he puts the gun in her mouth and pulls the trigger, and the camera is like super up close and it just clicks because it's out of ammo, and then he says, "I'll come back for you later."
Yeah.
That whole sequence, I was just like, holy crap, what am I about to see?
Mm-hmm.
And it was so dark and so intense, and you just think about yourself in that same situation, and it's almost like, okay, thank God I didn't die, but also, what just happened, and when is it going to happen again? Like, the intensity of that, I thought they pulled off really, really well, and I feel like that was really, like, the key of what the horror of this movie was, of just being, like, stranded in an unknown place, and you know that there are people outside that are out to get you. And so I feel like the places where they really leaned into that were where it was good, and then where it was more just kind of like passing time and interaction between the characters was where it was less compelling.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. I think,
and really, Beast was the real hero of the movie too.
100%. Shout out to you, Beast.
Word.
Yeah, I think that with the, and I don't know if it was just like the editing that they had to do for the X-rated, but the trying to get the baby back and dealing like with Ruby and the bad guy chasing, like that was just like kind of confusing how that all went down. Like I thought, was I not paying attention? Like my phone's down.
I think we had the same criticism of the remake, right? Where it was like, why is this girl suddenly abandoning her entire family to help people that she's never met? You know, like it. And I guess in this one, you saw that they like treated her pretty badly, whereas I don't know that they established that as much in the remake.
Right.
But it still just seemed very like abrupt and like not motivated.
Well, see, and I thought that the gas station owner was talking before the family pulled up, talking about like how she was found, or I don't know. I thought there was a reason for it. Maybe she was like found and adopted, or I don't know. Yeah. But it was the exact same thing. You're just like, wait, you just turn on your family that quick after doing all this for so long. But
yeah,
I guess things were getting tight for them because they were talking about how they were breaking into what they say Air Force or a military place and stole some stuff, and so I could see that. But it was just there were. I felt like the whole time watching this is like, I want to enjoy this, like just watch a straight up horror film, but it was just like the times, like you're saying, the talkie times was kind of boring. You know, it wasn't that interesting, but the times where there was actual action going down, it was like that, you know, and for me, it kind of made up for it. I'll definitely watch this film again. Like it's not like a hard stop.
Yeah. The other scene I had written down that I almost missed, it was when they were torturing the dad, like crucifying the cop dad. Mm-hmm. That was a very intense scene, as they were like hammering in the stake and stuff.
Yeah.
That I thought got real dark real fast. Yeah. I also read that was one of the scenes that ended up getting edited pretty heavily.
Right.
And I'm curious, but also kind of glad that I don't have whatever the more intense version of that was in my brain.
Well, and you know, it's kind of tripped me out, I think, the most about it. It's not the fact that putting what was happening to him. It was the fact that it was wooden. Like, it was wood.
Yeah.
Like, nails or whatever going through. And then that just sent me through this, like, whole, like, mind tunnel, like, this tunnel vision of, like, wait, is that what, like, supposedly happened when they used to do crucifixions a long time ago? Was it wood that was getting through? And now I was thinking, like, oh, man, those splinters would suck. But then I was thinking, like, that's just a really bad splinter in your hand. Like, that's, like, the worst splinter you can get.
Yeah.
Theoretically. And so, but yeah, that was just, like, almost kind of made you, like, made me a little squirmy, you know, that happened.
No, for sure.
So that was, like, mission accomplished. Like, that was awesome. Yeah. Like, you did, you know, anytime you can put something on film that makes me, you know, kind of wonder what I was doing watching it, then I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, again, and I think that's kind of like the crux of horror, right? Like the the thing that makes it effective is by having actors on a screen and your creativity. You're able to make a person who is sitting comfortably in their living room or a movie theater feel the emotions that they spend all day long trying not to feel. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is just crazy. Like, the fact that exists is just crazy. And it's such a difficult thing to pull off. And so when it's done well, it's just a thing of beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree for sure.
And then the only other thing I really had that I wanted to touch on was the ending reminded me of, like, last season when we did the 100 Years of Horror, and, like, the first 6 movies we watched all just ended really abruptly after the good guy won.
Oh, yeah.
This one 100% did that same thing, and I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I don't need the explanation.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't need this. I just need, like, it's done.
Yeah.
Let's just call it. And they did it. And it was smart move.
We didn't need 10 minutes of, like, inspirational music montage while they walk to a different highway and then hitchhike and then get out safely. You know what I mean? Like, that would have added nothing to the movie. And so I applaud the choice to just stop it when the conflict stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. It just makes life a lot easier, man.
Yeah. So definitely plenty of things about this movie that I think were a thumbs up. The experience of watching it end to end was not super compelling. Like, this isn't going to be on my list of, 50 scariest movies or anything like that. But it is, also not in the list of, like, 50 horror movies to avoid that I think we should also be working on.
Yeah. I didn't hate myself after watching this one. I will say this too, though. I think Ted Levine, the dad from the remake, was a way better, more believable that he was an ex-cop than the dad in the original. I'm just saying. I had to say it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I think all the acting in the remake was better, but it was also just the budget and resources and skill levels of the people making it were all at a totally different level, too. Yeah. So, yeah. They didn't even have to use porno cameras for the remake.
It'd be nice if they did. I think all cameras are porno cameras if you just put your mind to it.
If you try hard and believe in yourself.
You just believe right.
Oh, man. And that's it for today's episode. If you've listened this far, then thank you, and we hope you've enjoyed it. We're always looking for new ideas, so if you have any questions, comments, or movie suggestions, please send us an email at thehorrificpod@gmail.com, or feel free to comment on or message our Facebook page. Just search for The Horrific Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I want to say something real quick. I felt like I kind of made a little boner. I don't know if he was a legend at this point or not. Considering I was born 11 years after this film came out, he could have been a legend already just from Halloween. Talking about Wes Craven. Just wanted to clarify that.
So, I feel like I need to make a couple corrections. Because I said this was Wes Craven's second film that he directed. Mm-hmm. It was actually his third. And then you asked if he was already legendary because of Halloween. And John Carpenter wrote and directed Halloween, and it came out the year after this.
I did the same fucking thing, dude. I've done this so many times. I don't know why I get that.
So we're a little off today, Jesus. But we're gonna get better. We got a long way to go. It's all good.
Do this?
Okay, so I have to come clean on this movie.
Yeah.
I feel like everything about it adds up to it being something I would really like.
Yeah.
I felt disengaged for the vast majority of it.
Yeah. Dude, I do this all the time with Wes Craven and John Carpenter. I don't know why.
Wes Carpenter might be Wes Craven in the future maybe was John Carpenter. It's like Interstellar.
Dude, I think we gotta redo this.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no. It's totally fine. I can edit. I will leave that part, but I'll add the correction because we both said something wrong. So it's fine.
Jesus.
It's all good. Don't beat yourself up.
I know, but I do it. But my thing, which I'm cool with continuing.
Yep.
But holy shit, how many times have I done that over this podcast? The years of our podcast.
How many times have you done it and I didn't even notice? That's the real question.
That's true. No one said anything, so
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there's definitely been a few times in the past where I'm like, I didn't realize he was involved with it. But yeah,
I'm pretty sure I did it recently talking about Scream.
Probably.
Oh my god. Fuck me.
I bet both of our listeners are going to be horribly offended.
Yeah, I do have insult to a state. Real quick, South Dakota, you can kiss our ass. Like, we're glad that no one listens to us from your state. Out of all 50 states, South Dakota, Alaska, kiss our ass.
Have you been looking at the stats again?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. This is just Arkansas and Australia. God's country.
Oh, man. A lot of people listen to us from San Francisco.
What?
Yeah.
Ugh.
San Francisco, and then some other place, and then Oklahoma City, and then... I mean, it's just random after that, but yeah, crazy.
All right. Well, we need to start booking a tour, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But we sure as shit won't go to South Dakota.
I'll go around that place.
Because, that would have been a stop. That would have been a place we would have chosen to go.
Yeah.
But not now.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, I'll do a bit of a soft reset so we can come back in.
Yep.